Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to talk about how I made $17,000 wholesaling real estate. I'm going to break down the exact transaction, how I was able to find the deal. So make sure to subscribe on this video. Let's get into it. I've been doing wholesaling real estate for the last 2 years, but I've really been taking it serious this year. I'm so focused on going hard in this business just because I see the potential in any kind of business, especially in real estate. If you understand how people work and why they're looking to sell their property, why they're coming to you, it's about solving problems, being able to understand them, having empathy. In wholesaling real estate, there's a couple ways to make money. Number one, you can either bring the deal to the marketplace. Number two, you can either connect someone to the buyer. In this example here, how I was able to secure this property was someone in my network sent it to me. He said, hey, I got this property. It's in this area right here. Sent me the details. And I said, okay, bet I might actually have a buyer for this. So what I did essentially in this deal was, right, I connected my buyer to his buyer, right? So essentially we had the property. When he sent me the deal, I already had a person in mind, right? This is why it's important in wholesaling real estate, or, you know what I mean, to work on your buyers list. Because at the end of the day, if you have a deal, but you don't have buyers, it's going to be very tough for you to make money. So how you work on your buyers is essentially, I was already in the marketplace. Every single time I would do marketing, right? So marketing is important because at the end of the day, if nobody knows who you are, why would they trust you, right? So I would post every single day on social media, on my story, on just Facebook. I say, hey, you know, got this deal right here. If you're DM me buyers, if you want to buy this property. So I would post this consistently on my social media platforms. I would say, you know what I mean? DM me buyer if you're interested in this deal. And then people would message me and say, what's the details? So then I would take people's emails, their phone numbers, and I would add them into my buyers list. I kept doing this, and then eventually it just started to grow, right? Or when I had a property under contract and I was doing a showing, a bunch of investors would come in and I would just exchange contacts. I would take their number, and that's how I was able to essentially grow my buyers list. So this individual reached out to me. When he sent me the deal, I already knew what kind of deal it was. So then I reached out to my buyer. I said, hey, I got this property. I know you were looking for this a couple months back. Are you ready? Do you want to buy this deal now? He looked at the number. He said, sure, schedule a meeting for tomorrow. And then boom, just like that, we went to the showing. And then within like 10 minutes, he said, sure, I want to buy this deal. Within like 15 minutes, we had just made $17,000, right? You're probably wondering, like, how is that even possible? Like, here's what I realized in this game, especially in real estate, right? If you want to make money, you have to sell it to the rich, meaning you have to solve bigger problems for you to get bigger payouts, right? So at the end of the day, it's about solving problems, right? Even though it's a smaller transaction, right? It's 20 minutes of your time and you make so much money, but at the end of the day, you're solving problems, right? You're connecting someone to a property, to a deal. Potentially, he's going to buy this house. He's going to make $200K, I don't know how much money in the next like 5 years, because he's looking to hold this property long-term for appreciation value, right? He's probably going to put some money into it, fix it up, right? And then sell it on the open market, right? So here what we're doing is, you know, at the end of the day, it's actually, Myron Golden talks a lot about this. He said it's easier to make a lot of money in a short period of time than it is to make a lot of money in a long period of time, right? Because here's the thing, people think you need to trade a lot of your time in order to make a lot of money, but you actually don't. You just have to sell something to someone, right? It's you know what I mean? It's a higher offer that costs more money, but at the end of the day, they have to see the value. It's like a transformation, right? If they see the value of what you're producing, they're going to want to pay for that value, right? At the end of the day, we're just solving a need in the marketplace, right? And we're able to get paid that quick, right? But how we do this essentially is we have an abundance mindset. We don't have a scarcity mindset where opportunities come our way, right? We take advantage of those opportunities by being prepared, because at the end of the day, luck is an intersection where opportunity meets preparation. So if you're prepared, if you're in the marketplace, if you're prospecting, if you're talking to your customers, right? If you're doing the work, then when an opportunity shows up and you make money, it's a byproduct. It's the result, right? Because I believe success is a result of action. So every single day, what is the actions that you're doing? What activities are you doing in the business every day to get you to that end result, right? Here you might look at it and be like, oh, that was quick 20 minutes, but you don't know that I've been prospecting. I've been calling my buyers every single day to see what they're looking for, right? So the more you start showing up in the marketplace, it creates a ripple effect for people to come to reach out to you. So this deal right here, like I said, got my buyer bought it within 20 minutes and the deal was done and the transaction happened just like that. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to people, man. I realize now, especially in business, it's human nature, man. Human nature is just Like it's everything, and it's in every kind of business. It's in real estate, it's in home service business, it's in the phone business as well too. Why is someone coming to you compared to going to somebody else, right? Human nature really is that transaction, right? So if someone is coming to you, right, you got to look at when someone is selling their property, especially if they're selling short, there has to be a reason, there has to be a why, right? So if we study human nature, we realize that the things that someone is going through right now, they just happen because, out of coincidence. They've been happening for the last 10, 15 years. So you have to base it off their story. So when you're talking to these sellers, understand why they're selling their property, like what got them to the situation, right? And so once you start understanding their problems, you really figure out that the more you start talking to people, it's all about empathy, right? Understanding who they are, right? Figuring out their emotions. At the end of the day, transactions, yeah, we bought the property, we sold it, but why is this person selling the property? But once you start digging deeper and deeper and deeper, you really start to find out that this business, like 80% of it is just people, right? And if you don't have empathy, if you don't have that skill by being able to understand people, it's going to be very tough for them to sell it to you because as a real estate investor, we buy houses cash as is with any condition, right? The advantages of going with us compared to going to a realtor, because we can buy it as is, we could buy distressed properties, as is cash, right? Sometimes it could be no condition because sometimes we're buying these properties that are run down and need a lot of work. At the end of the day, you have to have an advantage, but also to have that empathy, especially when we're talking to sellers. I always like to just come in there, right, with the chance where it's a win-win situation, right? We come in there, we solve their problem, but at the same time too, we don't want to have that ego. We don't want to think, oh, we're bigger than this person, So I think a lot of times if you can have an understanding with the seller, right, being able to understand where they are right now, and then give them a timeline. So in this example, we're able to close this transaction in a small period of time because that seller wanted, his money right away. He wants to get paid right away and he wants to do the deal right away, right? So I believe wholesale and real estate is the fastest way to getting into this business. But at the end of the day, man, it comes down to sales and marketing, right? Everything is sales and marketing, whether you know it or not. In every single business, you have to sell something to a stranger, right? And marketing is how you get people's attention, right? Now you have the product in real estate wholesaling. You got the product. Now you have to sell it to the open market. How are you going to do that? You got to work on your market. You got to work on reaching out to your buyers list. And then if you got a deal and you don't got no buyers lined up to buy it, then that means you don't have any deal. You just only have a potential. So how do you get people to buy that deal? Is by being able to show them what's in it for them. How much money can they make out of this deal, right? So you got to be able to present the offer, present the deal, right? So I think that's the most creative way because at the end of the day, it's a both thing, right? Figuring out getting the product and then being able to sell it to the end user, but also to understanding how can you get these. I think the biggest challenge in this business in real estate is finding leads. So I think if you know how to find leads, and nowadays using Facebook ads, for me, what I do a lot of time now is I just, I do a lot of flyers, right? I go out there, I drop like 50 flyers a day. Right now in Canada, it's cold as hell, so it's very challenging. But if you're willing to do it during times when it's cold and during times when it's warm, it's gonna be easy, man. I think you just have to you have to know that it's gonna take a very long period of time for you to see success. Success doesn't happen right away. Like I said, success is a seeds of action that you plant every single day. Because the closer you get to your goal, right? So when you do stuff in the winter, when you do things when it's hard, then when the seasons change, because I believe everything is seasons. Jim Rohn talks about this, right? The seasons. You got winter, fall, spring, right? They're going to happen, but are you going to stay stagnant because the seasons change? No. You got to be able to wake up every single day, do something in the business. A certain activity is going to get you closer to the goal. Simple as reaching out to your bosses, making relationships, going into the community, right? Planting seeds. These are small little things that you could do every single day. It's a compound effect. So making $17,000, people be like, oh, that's a lot of money. How did you do it? Because I was planting seeds. You might not see it today. It's going to be, seeds don't happen right away. Sometimes they take a long time for them to flourish. And you can't expect the payout right away. I've invested so much money into this business, from getting into mentorship, just putting a lot of my time and effort into it. So when I'm seeing an ROI, because I invested, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to invest. If you're not willing to invest into mentorship, into people, right? How do you expect to see an ROI, right? That's let's say people want to get education, they go to school, they get a massive, student loan, right? And then they go work a job. But in entrepreneurship, you got to be able to invest into yourself because at the end of the day, the only ROI you're going to see is if you're willing to invest into you. And I think that's what's giving me the best ROI. I feel like, especially in this game, is that I've been able to sort of soak up game from people who have been in the business, ask questions, right? Always be a learner and never think that I know anything, because at the end of the day, someone always knows more than you. Someone always has, you know what I mean, has been in the business way longer than you. So it's being able to have that mindset of like abundance, of like growth mindset, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about that each one teach one. So if you found this video helpful, stay tuned for the next one. Like I said,